One morning, Thomas was taking on water when the Fat Controller came to see him. "Good morning, Thomas," greeted the Fat Controller. "Good morning, sir," Thomas greeted back. "Thomas," continued the Fat Controller, "a school bus has broken down, and today, the class that was going to use it is going on a school trip to the seaside. Can you take the class to the seaside instead?" "Of course, sir," smiled Thomas. "That's a good engine," beamed the Fat Controller, and Thomas puffed happily away. Thomas soon arrived at the station with Annie and Clarabelle, where the children and their teacher were waiting. "Beep, beep," whistled Thomas merrily. "Good morning." The teacher was quick to climb aboard Annie, but the children stayed behind. Thomas wasn't bothered though, as it would be a good few minutes before he was due to leave. Then, Thomas noticed the children chuckling. "Something funny?" asked Thomas curiously. "Just a joke I told," replied one of the girls. "Do you want to hear it?" "No thank you," answered Thomas politely. "By the way," continued a boy, "we thought of a way to make the journey to the seaside fun." "Go on," said Thomas inquisitively. "What if you raced down the line, Thomas?" answered the girl. "We'd have the biggest thrill ever." Thomas was surprised. "Zoom down the line," he repeated. "I'm sorry, but I can't do that. If I went at top speed, I'd fall over on a bend and crash, hurting all of you. You wouldn't want that." "Oh, it'll be fine," insisted the boy. "No, it wouldn't be," asserted Thomas firmly. "Like I just said, if I speed, I will crash. And if I crash, all of you would get hurt. The Fat Controller wouldn't like that. He also doesn't like his engines disobeying speed limits and other speed regulations." "The Fat Controller will never know," responded the girl. "But Thomas isn't the only one who would know," argued Annie. "We would know about this as well," added Clarabelle. "Indeed," agreed Thomas's driver. "Since we would know about this as well, we would tell the Fat Controller. And as Thomas said, speeding is dangerous, so it cannot be done." But the children seemed to be completely ignoring this lecture, or just didn't care. They suddenly began chanting, "Come on, Thomas," over and over again. This made Thomas cross. "No," he snapped. "I am not speeding, and that is final." The children stopped chanting at once. Then, they began to move towards Thomas's cab. Thomas, his crew, and Clarabelle were all confused. Suddenly, as the children got into Thomas's cab, they knocked his crew out. "What are you doing?" cried Thomas. Suddenly, Thomas felt himself begin to move. "Help! Help!" he shouted. "Thomas!" yelled the driver and fireman. They got off, but it was too late. Thomas had already left and was going too fast to be chased on foot. Thinking quickly, the driver and fireman ran into the station to call for help. Thomas rolled down the line at his highest speed. He was very terrified and kept on calling for someone, anyone to help him. Thomas then saw Gordon resting at a water tower. "I've been hijacked, Gordon!" shouted Thomas. The signalman panicked upon seeing the runaway Thomas and changed the points to avoid a head-on collision. Luckily, Gordon had heard Thomas, and so had Gordon's crew, who threw Gordon into reverse to try and save Thomas. Unfortunately, Gordon would take a while to get up to speed, so Thomas continued going faster and faster down the line. Then there was trouble. Bertie was stuck on the level crossing because his engine had given out. He felt miserable about it. "Bother," sighed Bertie. "Why didn't I let you check me when there was time?" he asked his driver. "Don't worry, Bertie," soothed his driver. "We all make mistakes." Bertie understood. Just then, Thomas saw Bertie and was horrified. "Look out!" screamed Thomas. Not long after Thomas crashed into Bertie, Gordon arrived on the scene. When he did arrive, he was horrified. Bertie was on his side and was not only severely damaged, but also unconscious. Thomas was in better shape, but was still damaged.
"Oh my goodness!"
cried Gordon in shock.
"Get up! Quickly!"
called Thomas. Gordon's driver went to the nearest telephone to do just that, and soon Ed would arrive with the breakdown train, Thomas's crew, and the Fat Controller. As soon as they arrived, the breakdown gang got to work cleaning up the mess, as a low loader came to take Bertie away to be repaired, and the police arrived. The Fat Controller walked in front of Thomas to speak to him.
"Thomas,"
said the Fat Controller worriedly.
"what's happened?"
Thomas explained everything that happened. Just then, as Thomas was finished explaining, he heard laughing coming from his cab. The Fat Controller heard it too. He didn't need to know anything else. The children that hijacked Thomas were declared insane and were sent to a psychiatric hospital, but the damage had been done. Bertie had been carrying passengers when Thomas crashed into him, so the lives of said passengers were lost. Everyone was in shock about what happened. No one ever thought that children could be so psychotic. But no one was more affected from the whole fiasco than Thomas. This didn't surprise anyone, and they were all worried for the little blue tank engine. After all, the hijacking had caused Thomas to murder innocent people, which would undoubtedly be a lot for Thomas to take, as indeed it was. Thomas tried to assure himself the accident wasn't his fault, but no matter how hard he tried, his demons kept lingering on in his smoke box. Thomas's trauma was so bad, the Fat Controller ordered for Thomas to be kept in the sheds for now. The Fat Controller also requested that someone be with Thomas at all times to help him through his trauma. One night, Toby was with Thomas when the station master came to see him. "Toby," said the station master, "Percy has broken down, so you'll need to take the mail train for him." "I'd love to do that," answered Toby, "but Thomas needs all the comfort he can get. What about Daisy or Mavis?" "I'm sorry," sighed the station master sadly, "but Mavis has some shunting to do with the quarry and needs help from Daisy, so I'm afraid you're the only engine available to cover for Percy." "All right," replied Toby reluctantly. He turned his attention to Thomas. "I'll be back as soon as I can, Thomas, I promise." "Thank you," stuttered Thomas meekly, and Toby left. Now, Thomas was all alone, as his crew had to go home. However, Thomas tried his best to remember the comfort from not just his crew, but everyone else. Soon, Thomas fell into an uneasy sleep. Suddenly, Thomas was awoken by the sound of feet moving on gravel. At first, Thomas thought nothing of it, until he noticed that whoever was walking towards the sheds. "Driver? Fireman? Both of you two?" asked Thomas hopefully. Unfortunately, Thomas's hope was dashed, as it wasn't his crew who entered the sheds. Somehow, the source of the walking went through the door like a ghost, before stopping just afterwards. Thomas's expression went as white as a sheet as he saw who had entered the sheds. It was a group of children. But not just any children. It was the same group of children who had hijacked Thomas all those days ago. The children began laughing as they approached Thomas. Thomas tried to whistle for his crew, but he couldn't. He tried to move away, but he couldn't do that either. All Thomas could do was watch helplessly as the children got closer and closer to him. "Please, don't hurt me, please," Thomas begged, but the plea did nothing. Thomas woke with a start to see Toby coming back. Thomas burst into a torrent of tears, and Toby felt more sorry than ever for his friend. After a long time of comfort, Thomas decided he had recovered enough to work, which the Fat Controller agreed to. However, he told Thomas to take it easy, which was advice Thomas listened to. Later that morning, Thomas was resting at the top station with Annie and Clara while Thomas's crew were talking to the guard. "Did you know that the station master was burgled last night?" asked the guard. "You don't say," gasped the driver. "I didn't know he had anything worth stealing to whoever the thieves are." "He won a cup for gardening recently," explained the guard. "Not only was that taken, but so was his car. Not that new one he's so proud of," said the driver. The guard sadly nodded. Thomas was very concerned after hearing this, and felt sorry for the station master. "Don't worry, station master," Thomas thought. "I'll help you get back what's rightfully yours, I promise." Later, Thomas was running nicely. The road was right beside the railway here, and the journey did help put him in a positive mood. Just then, Thomas had to stop at a signal, so he did. But as Thomas waited, a red car that raced by caught his eye. "That can't be," Thomas thought. "Can it?" Then, the signal dropped, and Thomas started again, going a little bit faster to catch up with the red car. "Whoa! Steady, Thomas," said the driver. "There's plenty of time." "Can't we get closer to that car?" panted Thomas. "It looks like station masters to me." "Lots of cars look like that," laughed the driver. "But he opened the regulator to get level with the car anyway." And when Thomas did get level with the car, there was no mistake about who it belonged to. "It is the station master's car!" exclaimed Thomas's driver. Sure enough, it was. Then, Thomas saw who was driving the car, and his face went pale. Driving the car was the children that had hijacked him to make him crash into Bertie. "No! No!" cried Thomas. Thomas held himself back from crying. His driver, fireman, Annie and Clara all saw this. "You can do it, Thomas!" encouraged the driver. "Remember our comfort!" Thomas did his best to remember exactly that. Then, he remembered his promise to the station master. "I promised him," Thomas said more bravely, "and I will keep it! Full speed, driver!" The driver didn't hesitate. He knew they had to catch those evil children and get them back where they belonged. So, the race was on. The fireman shoveled coal like never before, and Thomas kept his eyes on the car. "You won't get away with what you are doing, you devils!" he called. Just then, Thomas heard a horn in the distance, and the source raced behind the car. "Hello, Thomas!" "Bertie!" called Thomas. He had never been so happy to see Bertie. "We'll do this together!" called Bertie. Thomas agreed at once. As the chase continued, Thomas had an idea. "Driver," he said, "can you send a note to the nearest signal box to tell the signalman to alert the police?" "Of course," said the driver, and he and the fireman quickly wrote the note and put it in an empty lunch tin. Soon, Thomas was at the signal box, slowing down and whistling to alert the signalman. "Police!" shouted the driver, as the fireman threw the lunch tin inside. When the police were alerted, they made a large hole in the road for the car to get stuck in, and Bertie blocked the evil children from escaping. The children were sent back to the psychiatric hospital, and the Fat Controller praised Thomas, his crew, and Bertie. "Thanks to your quick thinking," he said, "the station master's cup and car was shaved. You should all be very proud of yourselves." "Indeed we are," smiled Bertie. "Same here," smiled Thomas. Thanks to this rescue, Thomas officially overcame his demons and went back to being a really useful engine.